All right. Without further ado, now that I have done my shameless grifting and shilling, we are going to welcome Andrew to the show. Hey, Andrew, thanks for spending some time with me today.
Hello, thanks for having me. Oh, we had a great conversation before, didn't we?
I really enjoyed it. I wish it had lasted longer, so I'm excited we have like a part two.
Yeah, I always do this thing where it's like, it's been an hour, we're done, because of the editing afterwards and all that stuff. And also because it's like, leave ourselves wanting more.
Yeah, no, I think it's probably a good policy. But I'm super excited to kind of get into some more stuff with you here today. So can you just tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to be doing what you're doing today?
Sure, I'm a British journalist, and
I can never tell that you were a British journalist. It's shocking.
I'm a British journalist. That's my American accent. Sorry, I'm trying. I do accents all the time, and I do them terribly, really, really bad. It's the one party trick I wish I really had, and I can't do it. British journalist. What else? What else do I do? Well, I was interested in sort of culty weird stuff. I grew up watching this guy called Louis Theroux, who in America, I think you know him, if you know him at all, as Louis Theroux, the son of Paul Theroux, the cousin of Justin Theroux, and all these Jennifer Aniston. And he Louis Theroux was very famous in the UK for like doing these. He was like on screen as a presenter, a bit like Michael Moore or something, but not political, and going around and sort of making jokes and being a bit funny and meeting these really kooky, weird, strange people. So that's why I'll end up like going out and meeting an exorcist and hanging out with him and learning to perform the exorcisms, but doing it all with a bit of a wry smile, not in a really condescending way, but then also trying to expose that, for example, this exorcist was, having abusive relationships with the schizophrenic young women that he was sort of kidnapping from psychiatric wards. So all these weird, strange, funny things, but also with some sort of profundity, and also languages. I like languages, so I've learned to speak 5 languages, and I do my work in those languages, whether it be Spanish, French, German, or Portuguese, or whatever. I say or whatever as if there's more than that, but there's not. And yeah, that's what it is, really. And I suppose the languages mixed with this interest in sort of other cultures and other worlds and things got me making these things and got me interested in cultish thinking as well. And got me making these things for BBC and HBO. And now I have my podcast, On the Edge with Andrew Gold, which you're on. It's going to be, or in a few weeks that will come out.
I know. Yeah. I'm really excited about that. Now, so like, what is it like to work with the BBC? I'm just curious.
Oh, it's such a hard one, isn't it? I think it's something that I'm learning from people like yourself and a lot of people who are a bit more outspoken online, that it's way past that time where I have to just keep going, I've got to be careful just in case someone's listening. Because firstly, they're not listening. Like some BBC producer is just not listening. They're doing whatever they're doing, and they don't even know YouTube exists. They're so like old-fashioned with that stuff now. I know they do have BBC on YouTube, but they're not thinking about it in a way they should be. And yeah, I just screw them. It was terrible. So I mean, I had to make the film about this exorcist, for example. I'd already done some stuff for HBO. They were interested, they liked the idea, and then nothing happened. It was impossible, and they didn't tell me why. So I went and made it just me and my friend David, who's a great director, as it happens, and we just borrowed equipment and worked part-time and stuff, and just basically lived almost with this exorcist in Argentina, where we happened to be living. So it was a mad few months, and then we had to teach ourselves how to edit, and it took months, and then we had to annoy the BBC for about 2 years for them just to watch this film. And the film's pretty different, because at the end he screams at me, the exorcist, and throws me in a room, and we think he's going to kill us and that kind of thing. So we knew we had something good, and it started winning festival films. Eventually they took the film, and they took it very begrudgingly, because they basically said to us, like, well, what we'll do is we'll take the worldwide rights, which is unheard of in documentaries. Usually they would take the territory, maybe if it's in America, it's just America, just the UK, that kind of thing. And usually it would be maybe for 1 year, you'd have the contract. They said, we want to take it in perpetuity and the worldwide rights. And they were going to pay us about, I think it would be about $8,000 or $9,000. Then they asked us to make changes and check things with lawyers and all that stuff, which cost more than the money that they gave us. So we lost money making this film, and because they'd taken the worldwide rights, it meant we couldn't sell it elsewhere afterwards. So we just lost money and didn't have money to make the next film and all of that kind of thing. And then afterwards, what I think might interest you more is like, I went and had meetings with them, and I said, why was it made so difficult for me when they're paying people who don't, direct and edit and do all, people who just show up? They pay them like $1 million or whatever for, or more than that per year. Why was it made so difficult for me? Why can't I get more documentaries made? What's going on? And they sort of wouldn't really say. They sort of shuffled their feet and stuff like that. I got an agent, and then she told me the truth, and she was just like, look, they are not going to put a white man on camera in this day and age. They're just not going to do it. We can try, and that's what we're going to do. So we spent the next 4 or 5 years. She was just like shopping me out to production company after production company in the UK, as well as, some emails back and forth with like people like Vice in America as well. And it was just the same response time after time. Very little written, but face to face. Me and my director David would sit there and we just waited for the moment, because they'd talk to us like, oh, we love these ideas. It was ideas like, I don't know, a vigilante group in I think it was Peru, might have been Bolivia, I should know really, where they make adulterers stand on anthills and they whip people if they're prostitutes and things like that. So that was like or Ecuador.
I want to see a documentary about that.
Right? That's the thing.
I want to see a documentary about that.
I know. And then like gay conversion in Ecuador. Really interesting thing about Ecuador and a gay conversion, right? Because gay conversion, there's always a talk about banning it, and I think is it banned? It's not banned it's banned in some states, and in the UK they're always talking about whether they should ban it. And what's never talked about is that banning things, as we know with a lot of other things like drugs and things like that, can often make things worse. And I don't think anyone's gone at it from that angle, gay conversion. But in Ecuador, they banned it because it was quite a common practice there. And then it got much, much worse. So instead of there being like a psychiatrist who would go and like, a phony psychiatrist who would go, oh, I can cure your gayness or whatever it might be. Instead, you'd get like lesbians being kidnapped at 3 a.m. from their houses and forced underground. They'd go missing for 6 months at a time. No one knew where they were. They were being beaten and abused in these underground sort of mafia places, because that's what happens often when you make things illegal. So it's a really interesting. So all those kinds of, I'm going off topic, but all those kinds of things were like, it's my bread and butter,
No, I mean, but those are the kind of things that like I want to see. Those are the kind of documentaries that should be made. I feel like what's going on in the media right now, and I mean, just in general, not even just like in the news media, but it's just like they're so not creative. There's no creativity. There's no interesting stories. There are no news stories. They're remaking movies all the time. It just makes no sense. I feel like since the pandemic, we have lost all ability to have any interesting, good content ever moving forward. Do you get that?
So, oh, absolutely. It's so boring. It's like you say, repetitive news cycle. But that's why I was always interested in, like I say, Louis Theroux. He did those kinds of stories, although they were always in America, because there was something about his British accent that gave him this faux naive facade. When he'd talk to people trusted him a bit more, because he had that kind of like, oh, can you tell me about that? And they're like, yeah, sure, man. So it sort of worked. Whereas for me, it was often like these different language places like Argentina or Ecuador. So I would sit there and tell them about these stories, these different production companies. And they would sit there sometimes, you don't always make a sale. They're not always interested. But I think most of them were nodding along like, wow, wait, what was that about Ecuador? What was that about? And I had 100 stories like that, and series and ways of putting them together. And there'd always be a part in the meeting when they would say, okay, listen, we love the ideas. We want to take this to Channel 4 and to the BBC and so on. How married are you to the idea? And we knew it was coming. How married are you to you being the journalist on screen? And I was like, well, I did do all the research, and I have called all these people and kept relationships. Another one was a Miss Chubby contest in Paraguay, where they have one of the most overweight obesity problems in the world. And they have this Miss Chubby thing, and it's like, really, are you just, is it like a freak show, or is it a good thing because of, all that kind of thing. And it was quite painful to get that. It was very painful to hear, we like your work, we like your ideas, but they would say, we just want a minority to be the on-screen journalist or presenter. And they joked. There were always jokes like, we can break your legs if you want, because then you'd be part of a minority.
Wow. Can you just claim that you're like gay or pansexual or trans or something? Would that work? What if you identified as a trans man?
They often said that. A trans man, so I'd have been a woman. I mean, I'd have to. The thing is, I'm 6'4". It's unlikely.
Oh, some women are tall. I don't know.
Adam's apple.
Well, but well, I mean, the thing about trans though is like you don't even need to transition now. So you could just identify as a trans woman and say, just like I'm comfortable the way I am. Why do I need to suit you?
I have a feeling it wouldn't work. I don't know. Or maybe I just couldn't do it because I could have just also worn some sort of religious garb. I could have put on some sort of Orthodox. I'm from a Jewish family. I could have put on a whole Jewish Orthodox thing. I could have put on a Muslim whatever. Maybe that would have helped.
Maybe. Something to try next time. So my last, I have to tell you about my last encounter with the BBC because it was ridiculous. I will never go on the BBC again. So over back February 2021, I broke the story about the Coke Be Less White training, right? And it went all over the internet. Did you hear about this?
No, the what? Say that again.
So Coca-Cola did a training with their employees that they required their employees to do that literally had a slide in it that said, try to be less white. And had other crazy stuff too. And it was a Robin DiAngelo training based on white fragility. And someone at Coca-Cola sent me these slides from the training, and I basically tweeted them out, not really thinking much about it because I'm so desensitized to this woke stuff now. I never know what's going to go viral and what isn't. Well, this went really viral and it got 27 million views and it was all over the news everywhere. And so I was doing these media interviews and the BBC called me and they said, oh, do you want to come on? And they gave me a really specific list of questions and they said they wanted it to be about the Coke Be Less White training. And I had to stay up till midnight or something to do this call because it was for the early, it was a nightmare. And so I had a full day of interviews and then I had to stay up late to talk to the BBC. And I get on the phone with this reporter and she starts ambushing me with questions about January 6th, in the middle of the interview. And she was like, don't you think this is white supremacy? And I was like, no, I really don't. And she just started, she started yelling at me to the point where I just hung up on her. And then I tweeted at the BBC to go F themselves. And I have never been on the BBC ever again since. And I don't think I will be invited back.
Do you know her name, the journalist?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but I definitely tweeted out the emails the BBC sent me saying, this is what you assholes said I was going to be talking about. And then you ambush me with this other bullshit.
Man, it's so sneaky. There's a whole sneakiness. I think you and I were talking off air before about about journalism itself. And journalism is a horrible industry, I think, and we're known for it as well, and just like lawyers are known for that as well. It's for journalism to work in many cases, you sort of rely on human misery, and you have to have more misery, or you're not selling newspapers. And I don't mind that because it's a job. But what annoys me is that journalists won't admit it. And time after time, I have said to other journalists, for example, I did a documentary about abortion, right? I was following a woman who was called the Crazy Baby Lady in Argentina, and looking at both sides or whatever. And there's a woman who had an abortion, and I'm asking her questions, and as she's answering, she starts crying. And that puts a journalist in a really difficult position because on the one hand, you've become quite friendly with this contributor, especially if you're hands-on with a film like I am and you meet them before and all that stuff. And it's very sad to see. But on the other hand, you and the camera person and the sound person, they're all going bingo because you've got the shot. And anyone who's thinking, oh, that's horrible, well, you're the ones watching it as well and enjoying that dramatic moment. So we're all part of it. And that's okay. But let's admit it. And I ask journalist after journalist, I say, do you ever feel that conflicted feeling? Because I do, do you ever think about that? And I don't think it's that they're lying to me. I think they won't admit it to themselves. And they'll just go oh, no, it's just it's about the person in the moment. It's very sad. It's come on, you needed that shot. So journalism, that person calling you up doesn't think about what day you're having, doesn't think about that she's being completely, irresponsible and unprofessional because she's asked you to do a certain thing and she's now going to, I would never just suddenly drop that on someone. I would, if I was going to ask you those things, I would make sure you're prepared so that it's fair, but they don't. And they think they're the good guys. That's what's insidious about it.
No, they definitely think they're the heroes, and it's infuriating to me. And one of the things that I've been working kind of with this team of volunteers lately to do actual what I'm calling actual journalism around investigating what's going on in the schools and whatnot, because I don't view journalists as real journalists anymore. They go on Twitter and they call that journalism. But I'm also pretty upfront with it in that I will not call myself a journalist. I mean, I'm an activist. Let's be honest. I have a definitive point of view. I will not tell both sides of the story. I will not give the schools a chance to comment because I really don't care what they have to say and they're going to lie anyway. And I wish that more journalists would be more honest about what they're doing because, I may be acting like an activist, but I feel like I'm at least being honest about what my position is, and they're not.
You've like read my mind. That's exactly how I feel about it. I gave a speech about it at the Bristol Humanist Society recently, exactly about that. Like, a lot of journalism is being replaced by activism. I gave the example of, I can't remember his name. There's a comedian who went to, I think it was a trans rally or a Black Lives Matter rally. And, oh, do you know who I mean? He's a comedian who's very loud. He has sort of a big mouth, and he got caught in a pose where he was like,
I don't know. Who is it? I don't know.
Oh, someone will know, but it was like this huge thing. He's got like a big YouTube following and stuff. Oh. And he was caught at this trans rally. And it was basically I wonder who it was as well. It was Associated Press, who was supposed to be like the neutral people. They are not activists. They are people who report like the wires. That's what journalists, like, you know, when a journalist is an activist, we take the news and sort the source from Associated Press or Reuters or someone, and then we turn it into whatever activism we want to do. But they've got to be neutral. And they had it as a caption. It was just like this guy, angry man at a trans rally confronting everyone and all that stuff. And if you watched, there's a video clip, which they're taking it from, and the video clip shows him like totally like not angry, not aggressive. He's just standing there debating with people. Meanwhile, there are like people screaming at him on the other side, like pushing and shoving, and they're making signs at him, and they're just like really having a go at him. And they were very violent, and it wasn't shown. They had to retract it, but even in their retraction, if I remember right, it was like a sarcastic. It was, you know, as sarcastic as a very professional organization can be, if you know what I mean. It was like, we shouldn't have said that. We should have just said this, and it was still implying that he was in the wrong. It's just like, that's not journalism.
No, exactly.